Arken Age is a visually stunning VR game on both PSVR 2 and PCVR, and it's held in pretty high regard by most investors, with some players calling it their VR game of the year. It has good gameplay, robust VR mechanics, everything is solid to the touch, the AI combat is surprisingly engaging, and there's tons of collectibles for you to work towards in the form of unlockable upgrades for your main weapon, sidearm and melee weapon. So in my last review, which was back in January, the campaign took me somewhere between 8 to 10 hours, which ticks another box for those of you who want an adventure to really put some time into. So what I'm saying is basically there's a lot to like about Arken Age, and this week I've been deep diving into the exclusive MetaQuest 3 version to give you my full thoughts on what I would normally call an almost impossible port from PCVR to Quest. Before we get going, this video is sponsored by the developers, but my critique of the game is not. If I accept a sponsorship on this channel, it's to ensure that I feature the game because my words and thoughts are never for sale. So in case any of you haven't seen Arken Age before, firstly let's go over what sort of game it is, then on to if my original criticisms of the game have been addressed, and then I'll go into the Quest 3 graphics and performance. So if you enjoyed today's video and find it helpful, please take a moment to leave a like and get subscribed for more VR content. Arken Age is an action adventure which is pretty traditional to play. It's a mixture of first person combat, light platforming, retrieving items to solve puzzles, and then complete objectives while defeating some bosses along the way. And you'll also be learning more about the story via memories left by a character called Alyx. You embody a lean, muscular lizard or frog, I'm not quite sure to be honest, and you're known as the Untethered One. You have been created by a god to find the Grand Arborist, which is the current ruler of the planet because all communications with him have stopped. So your job is to fight your way through an invading army known as the Hyperion Army, who have enslaved the native race of the planet called the Nara race, and they now live in hiding, and you must save them all and save the planet. So overall the story is pretty cool, and it is accompanied by some excellent music, which I don't think I really took notice of the first time I played it. And as I said earlier, everything in this game is solid, everything has weight, and your character has a full body. The combat can be very rewarding and sometimes a really good challenge. I found myself regularly mixing up long range shooting with up close and personal combat, and the enemy variety is good, with their armor getting heavier as you progress. There's also some large tank types which either use a minigun combined with a mine launcher or just have a huge axe or a club, and they can be quite a struggle to deal with, at least at first. But I found if you really take your time with Arken Age and get into upgrading your weapons to create some powerful tools, you'll start finding the combat getting much easier as the game progresses. Now don't get me wrong, you'll still die along the way because, as I said, the AI is actually pretty good and it did catch me off guard a couple of times. But overall I think when I did die, this was mostly my own fault because I didn't stock up on health pens or power cores before entering a new area. So now I want to talk about the weapons, and each weapon has 4 to 5 different loadouts, and you can combine these parts which you find via schematics around the game, and you can basically build these weapons in any way you want. But if you match up all the correct parts to one big schematic of a weapon, this will increase and usually unlock some sort of special ability. Also at your disposal you'll have grenades, sticky grenades and mines, plus you can throw the enemy's grenades back at them. The weapon customization and combinations was a massive part of my enjoyment this time around playing Arken Age, and I can imagine for most new players they will be more focused on the story and then dive into the new game plus mode to keep all your weapon progressions, but then go after better gear. As other tasks and collectibles go, there is one task I didn't complete on PSVR 2, but I finally managed to do it on the Quest, and that's freeing the dead but still imprisoned Nara dudes to complete the Karma game. If you break the helmets of these imprisoned Nara, you'll free their souls and be rewarded with 5% good karma. Alternatively, these dead Nara also hold a decent amount of in-game currency, and if you take this currency you'll end up with negative 5% karma. So I went for the positive karma again, and I finally got the ritual dagger, and even though it's not very long, it makes very short work of the enemy's heads. There is a reward for 100% negative karma too, but I'm honestly not sure what that is. And before I move on for the weapons, there was one other weapon I absolutely loved, and that was a weapon I think called the Power Mace. If you charged it up, it really does give you some excellent one-hit kills. The second main task in the game is collecting relics in each biome, and some of these are pretty well hidden until you find a guy called the Cartographer, and this unlocks the locations of all the nearby relics. But the relics though are definitely fun to try and find. They're hidden behind walls, inside animals, and overall they're just not very obvious. So regarding my original criticism, which was the lack of an objective marker, which was something the game badly needed because it's very easy to get lost, especially in between play sessions, since the game's world does pretty much look very samey, and it only changes to either be underwater or there's some autumn looking sections sections later on in the game, and I'm pleased to say the objective marker is an absolute game changer. I found my story progression speed up massively, especially once I got to grips with using the fast travel teleport system, bringing my original 8 to 10 hours gameplay estimation down to 6 to 8 hours. The objective marker is optional though, so if you're really looking to stay in the world and learn where everything is naturally, you can do that, and that would obviously put the game time up again to probably around 10 hours. So now we're on to the negatives, and even though I've praised the combat, it's also a bit hit and miss. One fight can be challenging with the next extremely easy, and even though Arken Age does increase in difficulty, this time around with my focus on collecting all the weapon upgrades meant sometimes I could easily just take on even the biggest tank guys in under 10 seconds. So what I'm saying is, if you invest time into the unlocks and upgrades, the game doesn't really scale in difficulty with your own progression. The game crashed only once, and the climbing, which is absolutely fantastic normally and is done by flicking your wrists to extend some hooks, can be troublesome, and this is mostly when it comes to vaulting up and over ledges. It's not often, but it does happen, especially for some reason towards the later part of the game. So on to the bit I think most people want to know about: how is the Quest 3 version of Arken Age versus PSVR 2 and PCVR? Personally, I think Arken Age on Quest is a massive achievement in a lot of ways, especially graphically. I can't think of a better Quest port in the history of VR so far. There's no asynchronous spacewalk being used, I've had no glitches, the frame rate is mostly solid unless there's a lot going on, and even if there is, it only slows down for a brief moment and then soon speeds up again. In direct comparison, there has been some sacrifices though. The surface of water isn't transparent, and shadows are nowhere near as good or detailed as the original, but overall this has been a real pleasure to play all over again, and in no way did it feel like I was missing out by not playing on the other systems. This is a top tier example of what could be done in terms of the porting process to Quest, and you would think completing the same game for the third time would actually be a chore, but this playthrough was actually my favourite. The devs have even included a live camera, so if you want to make footage of your gameplay, it's very easy to do and looks better than just the normal capture tools. There's a selfie mode, third person mode, and you can even see yourself from the enemy's perspective. So what I'm saying is, the devs have clearly taken their time and delivered a solid VR product, and right now that's just really rare for me, especially as a reviewer, especially if you take into account a more recent game like Reach, which falls back heavily on asynchronous spacewalk and was full of issues at launch. I definitely give Arken Age a buy recommendation, and if you use code GTVR or the link pinned in the comments, you can save 10% on the MetaQuest store. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.